All right, let's talk about 90 Day Fiance Happily Ever After. I think this is episode 3. Like I always say, I will put the correct answer there. Anyways, Colt might have gynecomastia. I learned that also from the Learning Channel. Do you remember when the Learning Channel actually used to be about learning things? I used to watch surgery on there. I learned about so many different conditions on there. Do you remember when they had shows like The Tree Man and The Boy Whose Skin Fell Off? There was one, I think it was called like The 46-Year Pregnancy, where this woman went into labor, but then she never had the baby, and then the baby like calcified in her abdomen and she carried it for 46 years. Anyways, that's where I think I learned the term gynecomastia, which is when men form extra breast tissue, and I think that's what Colt has. I also watched a parasitic twin removal, and I watched a conjoined twin separation surgery, and it was the twins that were conjoined at the head. That was a really, really interesting surgery to watch. That was way back in the day, back when TLC actually was the Learning Channel, before they just had little people, 90 Day Fiancés, and super white families that just have like hella kids. I don't know why is that fascinating to some people, to see a family with like 10 kids, 18 kids. Like, that's not. I remember last year I got tore apart on Twitter because there was like some advertisement for some show where all the ad was like babies crying and then poop smeared on the floor and then a pile of pee in another part of the floor, and I was like, who wants to watch that? And the fans of that show attacked me on Twitter. They were like, how dare you? Those children are, precious. They're gifts from God. And I said, I didn't say anything bad about the children. I just don't want to see the poop and the piss on the floor. Sorry. What was I saying? I can't help, like, if you're wondering why I watch those weird shows about the surgeries and stuff, I can't help it. Both of my grandmothers were nurses. One was a nurse practitioner and the other one was a registered nurse, and they both retired from UConn Medical Center, and they both had books about human oddities and surgeries. And I mean, these are the type of, like, one of my grandmothers, she could literally eat dinner while watching Dr. Pimple Popper, and it's nothing to her because she's seen it all in the hospital. Back to Colt and his B cups. I'm trying to figure out how he's pulling all these women, unless there is a segment of women that are into that. Like, you've heard of guys that are chubby chasers. They like thick women. Maybe there are women that are also chubby chasers and they just like thick men. I noticed that I'm jumping around, but Larissa was looking at her phone at a picture of Colty, and she zoomed in on his fat calves. And I don't understand. There's got to be a group of women that this is their thing. This is what gets them, excited. So more power to them. Now that I think about it, I do know a girl who told me that she only liked to date guys that were 20 pounds overweight or more, because she said, well, they have slightly low self-esteem, so they'll appreciate you more. Not true. Ugly dudes can be, she said overweight. I was like, the worst thing you do is give an ugly dude too much play, because sometimes they will be the biggest jerks because they feel like, oh, because the last chick treated me like trash, I gotta treat all the new chicks like trash. And that's never gonna make you feel whole again. Like, you're just gonna have to chalk that up to that old chick. You can't take out all your aggression on the new chick. She has nothing to do with what the old chick said or did to you. That's all I'm saying. Plus, dudes are a little bit, I don't want to say they're delusional. I'll just say they have been told by our society that they can look like this, but be entitled to a woman that looks like this. And this has been ingrained in their pop culture, from the Honeymooners to the Simpsons, Family Guy, even the Cosby Show. Like, Bill Cosby's not a good looking dude, but his wife on that show was gorgeous. Oh, did I forget the Flintstones and King of Queens as well? It's just like over and over again, schlubby, not so attractive dude, beautiful wife. So they see these things in pop culture and they think, oh, this is the way it's supposed to go, but that's usually not how it happens. Usually people are what they called equally yoked. You usually attract what you are. That's the general wisdom about it. I don't know. I'm not wise. Not yet. I'm trying. So then we go to Libby and Andre in Moldova, and he's acting like a jerk at the kitchen table. And if there's one thing I would have memorized in Moldovan, is that your son doesn't have a job and he's always asking my dad for money. Like, if I didn't learn nothing else let me not misspeak. Because I did Google this, because I didn't want to be an ignorant American. The language that's spoken most in Moldova is actually Romanian, and there's some people that speak Russian, and I think there was a third language, Ukrainian. Some people speak Ukrainian there too, so I misspoke when I said Moldovan. I should have said whichever language his family speaks, and we're going to assume because the majority of people in Moldova speak Romanian, the one line I would have learned in Romanian is your son doesn't have a job and he keeps asking my dad for money. I would have made sure his parents knew that. That said, Libby's family is still ignorant and xenophobic, and I heard in the Twitter streets that they all have criminal records, allegedly, and they're Trump supporters, which tells you more about their xenophobia. Let's get to the beef and the potatoes of the episode. Asuelo sat his behind in the back of the car and called Kalani a lying bitch in front of her mother. And she didn't turn around and smack the fire out of him. She has the restraint of a saint. I'm telling you. I don't know whether I could be the same. I don't know whether I could do that. No, not at all. I don't think I would have been able to keep myself from pulling an Aunt Bedelia on him. Ashtray back in place. Chair overturned. Smooth. After they get to where they're going in California, I guess it hit him that eventually her father would find out what he did. So he gets on the city bus. I think at the time he said he was going back to Utah, which you can't just take a city bus. I mean, you know how many, well, you probably technically could. I once took a city bus from Hartford to New Haven and I transferred like 5 times and it took me like 2 hours. So you could go across a state in a city bus if you wanted to that badly, but it would take you forever. And it would be super uncomfortable. And you'd have to hit spots where the city buses don't connect and you'd have to walk a couple miles, because that happens too, especially in very country areas. There's some areas where there is no connecting bus and you have to hoof it to where you can catch the next bus. I took a Greyhound bus one time from Connecticut. Well, actually it was Peter Pan from Connecticut to New York, and then Greyhound from New York all the way. Did I take it? No, I'm sorry. It was Peter Pan from Connecticut to Washington, D.C. Then I switched in D.C. to Greyhound and took that all the way down to Orlando, Florida. And some of the places where the Greyhound bus stopped was literally a pole in the woods. I think it was somewhere in the Carolinas where the stops, there was no bus station, there was no terminal. It was literally a pole with a little decal on it in the middle of the woods. So... well, what was I saying about Asuelo trying to take the bus from California to Utah? But anyways, yeah, not a thing that he could do. So he gets on the bus. I wanted to make the joke that he sat in the right section on the bus, because when he sat down, there was like a little handicap section. And I try so hard not to make these jokes about Asuelo, but I swear he's on a spectrum. He's not functioning as an adult male would. And I remember there was a conversation going back and forth on Twitter about whether it was just a language issue. And I'm of the opinion that it's not just a language issue, because Karini didn't speak any English, but was able to express herself as a grown woman. Who else had difficulty with language? There was somebody else. Rose. She didn't speak hardly any English at all, and she was able to express herself as a grown woman. So it's not a language barrier thing with Asuelo. I think it might be a processing problem with Asuelo, in addition to an attitude problem. So you got 2 problems. You got a processing problem where the person is not functioning as an adult male, and also he has a nasty attitude because he sat right there in the back of the car and thought that he could say what he said to Kalani without any repercussions. And I'm just, we'll see how her father handles that with his quiet talking self. Like he's almost, I wonder what he did to his voice. Maybe he screamed a lot when he was a kid or something. Or maybe he had, sometimes some people, if they had strep throat really, really bad, it damages their vocal cords for life. I think that's what happened to Tone Loc, why his voice is like that, because he had really bad strep throat and it scarred his vocal cords. And I think that's also what happened. Well, I might be just misremembering, because I misremember things. I remember I misremember, especially when it comes to factoids about celebrities, because back in the 90s, there were so many weird rumors about celebrities and everyone just ran with them because we didn't have Google to fact check. So like it was until, I think it was just last year, that I still thought Albie Shore was in jail for rape, because that was the rumor back in the 90s. So I don't even want to say, I was going to say that the lady that sang Total Eclipse of the Heart, the same thing happened to her, but I don't know. That could just be a rumor from the 80s, and it probably has nothing to do with anything, and it just came out of nowhere. So anyways, I don't know what's up with her dad's voice, but he's still scary. Hopefully he just checks Asuelo and gets him to be respectful, because that was crazy where he sat there in the back of the van and did that. I remember one time my grandfather used to say, he said, you shouldn't be like that and be, disrespectful to women, because the worst thing you could ever do is go to sleep in a house with a mad woman. And then he told us a story about this guy in Orlando that he was like really disrespectful to his wife, and when he fell asleep, she tied him to the bed and beat his ass, and that the people outside could hear him screaming from inside the house because she was beating him, and he couldn't do anything because he was tied. His arms and legs were tied down to the bed. But I always remember my grandfather saying that you never lay your head down to sleep in a house with a mad woman. I guess that's all I have to say about the 90 Day Fiancé Happily Ever After episode 4, maybe? I'll be back soon, though. Bye.